Well, everybody, thank you for coming to the airbrush demo. Today I'm going to show you how I airbrush an airplane. It's not necessarily the only way or the correct way, it's just the way I do it. First, I'm going to talk about some of the equipment I'm going to use. My favorite airbrush is this one right here. This is a PSS VL. I actually have two of them. I keep different tips in each one so that if I want to do a wider area, I use the wide tip, and if I want to do a narrower fine line, I'll use the narrower tip. One of the most important things with the airbrushes is to keep them spotless. When you're done with one color, you can just run a little bit of thinner through them, but when you're done for the day, take the thing completely apart and clean it top to bottom. Get every speck of paint and every speck of thinner out of the thing before you put it back together, or it'll seize up. And then you'll be cleaning it. The next time you go to use it, you'll be tearing it apart, trying to unwedge things, and it's just a complete nightmare. So you really got to keep them clean. Another thing is to be very careful of the little fine tip on the end of the airbrush. If that gets bent at all, your paint will come out and turn corners on you and do all kinds of funny things you don't want it to do. So be very careful of the needles. They're not very expensive to replace. Good airbrush shop, good model shop should have replacement parts for the PSS. The tip I use mostly is the number 5 tip on the PSS. When you buy these kits, they're about 60 bucks. They come with 3 tips. They come with a number 1, a number 3, and a number 5. The number 1 tip is for little tiny plastic models where you want to do those little fine squiggles. So that's pretty much useless. I don't even use that one at all. I just pretty much toss it away. I use the 3 and the 5. The 5 gives, I mean, you can paint a whole airplane with a 5. It might take a few minutes, but I mean, you can get it done. So the 5 is what I use 90% of the time. If I want to do some real fine detail work, you know, touch up a spot that I screwed up and drip some paint on, I'll sometimes use the 3. Supplies. You want to have a good set of supplies. Tape, all kinds of tape. The absolute best tape on the planet that I've found for masking things off is this Tamiya fine line masking tape. You can get it in most of the decent model shops, or you can get it online at ehobbies.com or micromark.com. There's a lot of places online you can buy this stuff. It's not very expensive, $2. This will do a whole lot of airplanes. Goes on very simply. Goes down, no problem at all. The nice thing about this stuff is paint will not bleed under it, and it will not peel the paint off underneath. Because paint will bleed under regular masking tape, painter's tape. It'll bleed under almost any kind of tape that I've found, with the exception of this special stuff that Tamiya, and there's a couple other modeling, mostly plastic model companies make this stuff. So you just put your low-tack tape on, and then you can mask off the larger areas in between with some white copy paper. Like I said, don't use newsprint. Again, if you do use newsprint, you're running the chance of the print transferring to the airplane. And it does happen. I've had it happen, and I'm sure most of the other guys that have airbrushed for any length of time have had it happen. The nice thing about airbrushing is you actually don't need to mask a lot. With the airbrush, you're not going to get a ton of overspray. I mean, I'm not going to probably mask any more than that on this airplane here. Okay, some of the other things you're going to need. Obviously, paint thinners. Get the right thinner for the type of paint you're using. Acrylic paints, alcohol or water, oil-based paints, obviously paint thinner, xylene. What is this? This is xylene. Some kind of paint thinner like that. A tack rag. Make sure you have a tack rag. You guys don't know what a tack cloth is. It's a little piece of cheesecloth that's got something in it that picks up all the particles of dust off your airplane. They're very handy to have, and you always want to wipe the plane down with one before you paint it. These things are not expensive. You can get them at, again, hardware stores, Lowe's, Home Depot. And if you've never felt one, you guys can play with this one when we're done. But you just wipe the plane down with it. As you can see, there was quite a bit of dirt on that airplane, and you don't want that underneath your paint. So always wipe the plane down with a tack rag. I use Rust-Oleum auto primer on all my airplanes. It's easy to get, it's cheap, and it sands beautifully. The trick with Rust-Oleum auto primer is to put it on the airplane and let it dry completely for a day or two. If you try to sand it too soon, it's just going to gum up the sandpaper. So let it dry completely. Day, 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever, as long as you can. Once it's dry, the stuff sands beautifully. I mean, it just comes off in a fine dust. Sand it down to about 320, and then you can go ahead and put your color coats on. My favorite paints I like to use are these Tamiyas. Again, if you can get them in a can, if the can colors work for you, great. If you can't, they come in these tiny little bottles. These cost about $2. These actually go quite a long ways because you thin them down 50-50 with thinner when you spray them. The spray cans, you spray them right out of the can. And I've got a fuselage right here. I'm gonna put a little bit of spray paint on because I'm gonna do a different camo job on this one and I want it to dry. You always want to put the lighter color down first. The reason for that is the overspray from the next color, the darker color, doesn't show up nearly as bad on the light color as it does if you do it the opposite direction. If you put the dark color down first and then try to airbrush your light camo, the overspray shows up and it's not very pretty. So always go from light to dark. Good stuff. Okay, we'll let that one dry for a few minutes. This stuff dries very, very fast. It dries nice and flat, nice and smooth. Just a super paint. The other paint I like to use is the Tesser's Model Masters. This is a real good paint too. This is an oil-based paint. So you thin it with paint thinner, whereas the Tamiyas in the bottles are water-based. The Tamiyas in the cans, however, oil-based. This is a lacquer. So you need to thin it. You can't thin it with the alcohol or the water.
You paint more with oil or lacquer?
About 50-50. Yeah, about half the planes. The Tamiya paints, these are pretty new. They haven't been on the market very long. But this is what I've been using lately, when I can get it. The Model Masters is what I've used primarily in the past. Make sure you don't get the acrylic Model Masters. They make this paint in oil-based and water-based. The water-based stuff just is not very good. Like a demarcation line between the bottom of the airplane and the top of the airplane, just by holding the paint can very close and moving it fast. Like that. You get your bottom color and your top color. Some paint jobs, obviously they'll have a sharp line, and that's just masking tape. You just mask it off and put your bottom color on. You can see this Tamiya covers really nicely. Okay, I'm gonna put on top of this, I'm gonna do the Japanese blotchy green. I'm sure you've seen the real nasty looking zeros. This is Tamiya JN green. So this is the actual authentic color for this. I've already put some in a bottle. This stuff I thin with alcohol 50%. So it's 50% paint, 50% alcohol. If you don't do that, it's not gonna come out of the airbrush real well. Now I've got a can of propellant. Normally, I'd be using a compressor. You wanna set your compressor to about 25 PSI. If you set it higher than that, the paint has a tendency to come out real dry, and you'll get a rough, almost like sandpaper finish. If you go the other direction, obviously it's not going to come out. So 25 PSI, 25, 30, you know, right around in there. Now, when you're doing the blotchy paint jobs, you don't want to hold it real close. Hold it back, apply the paint lightly, and move it around a lot. If you keep it in the same spot too long, you're just going to get a big old spot of paint. I'm getting nothing but moisture. That's what you get if you hold it too close. What you want to do is you want to hold it back and just move it around. Don't hold it in the same spot. Just gently zigzag it around. Sort of like that. Too light's good. Too heavy's bad. You can always go in and put more paint on it. You know, if you do that, now you got to go back and you got to put your base color back on if you want it to look good. So a little further away. Don't pull back too much on the paint. The way this airbrush works, going back to the airbrush, pulling back flows the paint. Pushing down is the air. So I can put air and no paint. And then as I pull back, the further I pull back on the airbrush, the more paint that comes out. Just make the dots very irregular. They very rarely had round dots on them. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see with guys doing paint jobs, with camo paint jobs, is the dots are all the same size and the same shape, and they just didn't do that. They didn't have stencils, and, you know, kabunk, 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 kabunk. They a lot of times put this paint on with rags. You know, they just dipped a rag in a 5-gallon bucket of paint and just they slopped it all around. So messy's good. You can go in and touch up some of the ones that you think need touched up. That one's a little light, you know, put some more paint on it. That's not too bad. German planes are kind of the same way. The messier you make them, almost the better. It'll be enough to get it done here. It's pretty easy. But what I do is I do the outline first, you know, on both sides, and then fill it in. I don't know if you've seen my MEP 1101 over there. It has a fairly sharp outline to the camouflage. It's not a soft edge like this. There's a couple ways you can do it. If you want a really sharp edge, you can use masking tape. Just put the masking tape on, mask it off, and you'll get a nice sharp edge. If you want a sort of sharp edge with a little bit of fuzz to it, take a piece of cardboard. I thought I had it. But anyway, piece of maybe 16th inch thick cardboard, and cut your shape out, hold it against the airplane, and then spray away from the cardboard towards the airplane. And that little 1/8 inch lip will give you a nice soft edge. It'll be almost sharp, but not razor blade sharp. But normally you do want to be a little careful peeling off your masking tape. You want to peel it back over itself like this. Don't peel it straight up like that, because that's the sure way to pull the paint off underneath. And once you get the airplane done, you can go ahead and do your panel lines or whatever other detail you want to do. And then it's a good idea to put a coat of gloss over the top to seal everything. It depends on the paint that I use underneath. I like the Tamiya gloss. Always test the gloss on some inconspicuous area of your airplane before you spray it on. Because there's nothing worse than getting to this point, spraying your gloss on and having your paint just wrinkle up into a big nasty ball. Okay, thank you very much.